Yeah.
Young T.
And Ab's passion.
Washington was the first president who set a lot of precedents, making unwritten rules for all the future fools.
This is important to a new nation, for everyone in affiliation, strengthening our government to some extent was all that George meant.
In 1789, Congress created the first cabinet positions that related
state, treasury, and war, and the offices of Attorney General and Postmaster General.
The government went through a lot, strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace.
Congress decides to pass the Judiciary Act. It made the Supreme Court a fact and set up district courts.
This ain't a child sport. This allowed cases to be repealed if injustice was done in a certain field. The nation's in debt, but do not fret, 'cause Alexander Hamilton has got a plan.
We're gonna repay all debts and buy bonds. We'll buy more bonds to cover response as the economy improved. We'll be able to move our government forward.
James Madison fought against this plan. He thought it rewarded the people who committed scam.
Hamilton compromised by moving the capital. He lost nothing, but he got his thing.
Next on Ham's to-do list, set up a national bank. That's the gist.
He wanted a tariff on foreign goods.
Southern farmers weren't happy in the cottonwoods. In the end, Congress passed a tax much lower than Hamilton asked.
The government went through a lot, strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace.
Many Americans hated this tax because with it they couldn't relax. Corn took a lot of effort to transport. They made it into whiskey for easy support.
When officials tried to collect the tax, the farmers rebelled and threw down their axe. Washington responded quickly. He dispatched the militia to act strictly.
The farmers fled back to their farms. Washington showed he wouldn't take any swarms.
The government showed they were strong enough to fight, wouldn't take fights fueled by fright.
The government went through a lot, strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace. The French are fighting, but they don't have a king. Should we help them,
or should we stay in the wings? America supports them at first, then violence ensued, and we all dispersed.
Hamilton doesn't want to get in a fight.
Jefferson wants to engage in gunfight.
Washington decides to remain neutral, 'cause he doesn't want to risk an American skull.
Washington created our foreign policy. This benefited us a lot.
You'll see. Americans had a problem upholding the treaty. They wanted to trade their meaty with both of the countries.
1793, Jay's Treaty. Britain had just seized American ships trading in the French West Indies.
Chief John Jay negotiated an agreement. He wanted Britain to pay 100% of the damages caused to the ships. Britain agreed to give up forts in the West Dip, while Americans had to pay back debts to British merchants.
This caused Americans to act like serpents, protesting the treaty because it didn't serve their needies. At first, there were no political parties, but then they stopped being smarties.
Forgetting George Washington's warning, they started transforming our entire government with poor judgment.
They split the administration into factions. This was a poor action. Americans didn't like political parties, yet they emerged, no tease.
Democratic Republicans and Federalists, they argued about everything in generalists, manufacturing or farming,
whether one or the other was more charming.
Federal or state power, which one should tower over the other?
Interpretation of the Constitution. Should we be loose or strict in the laws of our nation?
Eventually, newspapers took sides. This created tides.
As the parties grew, the divides. Newspapers influenced public decisions about our politicians.
The election of 1796, the major cliques played a major role in the election. The parties persuaded the direction of who was going to be George Washington's replacement.
They were extremely impatient. Republicans wanted T.J. for Pres and Mr. Burr for Vice. John Adams and Pinckney was what the Federalists thought would suffice.
In the end, they got John Adams and T.J. They weren't friends.
Political parties got in the way of unity that jeopardized our community.
Tensions increased as the years went on. It made nothing happen. They were tired and wanted to yawn. The government went through a lot,
strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace. A conflict with France gave Americans ants in their pants.
France rejected Jay's treaty. Americans wanted a war, sweetie.
Adams sent diplomats to Paris. They discussed being neutral to prepare us. Charles Maurice de Talleyrand wouldn't directly deal with the Americans.
Instead, he sent French agents to discuss payments. Talleyrand wanted 25,000 for himself and 10 million to France itself.
Instead of releasing the names, Adams kept them as X, Y,
and Z. This made Americans real mad, and pretty soon they started a fad. Millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute.
Their refusal to pay and bribe started a dispute.
France continued to attack American ships, so Adams built frigates to protect our gifts.
This improved our country, 'cause it stopped French attacks.
Adams did a good job when it came to this act. Many Federalists criticized Adams for this choice.
When he wanted to silence all this war and voice again, Adams sent diplomats to France. He stayed out of war
on a slim chance. The government went through a lot, strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace.
The alien and sadistic
past law made them wait 5 years, but under the new law made them wait 14. The Sedition Act. Citizens could be fined or jailed if they criticized the government. They would get nailed.
This was a violation of our First Amendment rights.
This could have created fights.
DJ was against this.
He warned that it was a dismiss of our constitutional rights.
The government went through a lot, strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace.
Mr. Jefferson had an opinion on the new act.
They made him angry to the max. The court couldn't help at all, so Jefferson made a call to the states.
He told them to protest and be strong. Then he argued that the government was wrong. He said the states have a right to reject federal laws.
So government wasn't running wild with the dogs.
In 1798 and 99, Jefferson and Madison flipped a new dime. The Kentucky and Virginia resolutions provided each state with their own solutions.
The states could decide if a law was wrong or right. If the states decided the law was wrong within that state, the law would be gone.
The new resolutions raised some confusions on who got what power.
Did the government only get what was in the Constitution?
Did the states get everything else?
That's not a solution.
Later on, the Sedition and Alien Acts would be gone.
But now, the confusion of rights continue to pound and worsen the state of our government's fate. The government went through a lot, strengthening and weakening our shot to be a united nation of peace and creation, working together to form a better place for glory and grace.
The new election of 1800, Republicans backed Thomas Jefferson for president.
And Aaron Burr for vice president. Republicans won the popular vote, but when the Electoral College voted, Jefferson and Burr each received 73 votes.
The House of Reps got to decide this one. After 4 days, Jefferson finally won. Congress then passed the 12th Amendment. It made them vote for the defendant of president and vice separately.
After 1800, the Federalist Party declined. They got less seats and fell behind. In 1804, it weakened even more. The leader, Hamilton, was shot in a duel. Aaron Burr killed him. It was pretty cruel.
Despite the early decline, Republicans kept their design. Hamilton's economic programs stayed the plans.
To this very day, we use Hamilton's work. Thanks to him, we have a perk.
The government wasn't perfect,
but their actions were direct.
They strengthened and weakened us. No
time to further discuss.